When a girl laughed at his prom invite, she had no idea she was turning down a future star. Years later, her reaction would say it all. It was the kind of afternoon that made the edges of everything shimmer a lazy, golden sun hanging over Jefferson High's parking lot. The white lines on the asphalt glowed faintly in the heat. Cars stood in neat rows, and scattered voices floated on the breeze. Somewhere off to the side, near the edge of the lot where the pavement cracked into tufts of stubborn grass, walked Marcus. Marcus was tall, but somehow always managed to look smaller than he was. His shoulders stayed slightly hunched, as if he were trying not to take up too much space in the world. His skin was a smooth, deep brown that caught the sunlight like polished wood, but he didn't seem to notice or care. Black hoodie, scuffed sneakers, always those headphones clamped over his ears like armor. In one hand, Marcus carried a worn black notebook, its edges frayed from constant use. The cover was covered in little doodles, half notes, treble clefs, fragments of song lyrics in scribbled pen. He carried it like someone else might carry a wallet or a phone, close to his chest, as if it held something private. And in a way, it did. At first glance there was nothing especially remarkable about Marcus, but people noticed him most. To whisper. Two boys leaned against a car nearby, their laughter quiet but sharp. One of them nudged the other. "There goes the music nerd again," the first boy said, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Wonder what's in that notebook." The second one added, peering as if he could catch a glimpse. "Probably just a bunch of sad love songs nobody's ever gonna hear." They weren't mean exactly, not openly, but there was always that undercurrent, that casual dismissal. Marcus didn't react. His eyes stayed lowered, scanning the sidewalk. As he walked, he wasn't ignoring them exactly. It was more like they existed on a different frequency, somewhere outside the soundscape playing in his headphones. If he stood close enough, you might hear it, a low, complex beat, thrumming in time with his footsteps. Marcus made his own mixes, layering sounds late into the night, playing with rhythm and melody until he built something completely his. But nobody at Jefferson High cared about that. To most of them, he was just the quiet black kid who sat alone in the cafeteria, sketching out weird symbols on sheet music, while everyone else talked about parties, sports, and prom. That was coming up soon. There were posters taped to lockers and hallways, all glitter and promise. People already had dates, except for Marcus, of course. No one expected otherwise. A breeze picked up, stirring loose paper across the asphalt. Marcus paused at the edge of the lot, adjusting his headphones slightly, thumb tapping against the side to skip tracks. His face was still and thoughtful, calm, in a way that didn't quite match his age, like he lived somewhere quieter inside his head. Another group of students passed by behind him. Two girls this time, their arms full of books. One of them glanced his way, then leaned in toward her friend, her voice dropping to a stage whisper just loud enough. "That's Marcus, right? He's always writing music or whatever. Kinda weird, isn't it?" Her friend shrugged. "Yeah, but like, harmless weird, I guess." That was the word that followed Marcus around. Harmless, like it didn't matter much either way. If anyone had looked closer, though, they might have seen something else. The way his fingers twitched against the spine of his notebook, the faint glimmer of light catching the edge of a small silver chain round his neck hidden under his hoodie, or the steady, focused set of his jaw. Marcus wasn't the kind of person who exploded into the room. He didn't need to be. He had his music, his notebooks, his beats, and a dream bigger than this whole parking lot, bigger than Jefferson High. But that afternoon, no one saw it. No one paid much attention as Marcus turned slowly and walked up the cracked sidewalk toward the front doors, head bowed in time with whatever track was playing in his ears. To them, he was still just a music nerd, quiet, background noise. Only not everything quiet stays small forever. By mid-April, Jefferson High had turned into a shrine to prom season. Posters covered every spare inch of wall space, shiny flyers with glittery fonts, neon colors announcing a night under the stars in looping script. Balloons floated in the main hallway, half deflated from being tied up too early. Even the school's digital sign out front flashed. Prom, Friday, May 12th. At lunch, it seemed like that's all anyone could talk about. Who was going with whom, who had been turned down, who had said yes in the most dramatic Y-roses in the locker, flash mobs in the cafeteria, that sort of thing. Marcus wasn't really part of those conversations. He sat in his usual spot, far from the center of the room, headphones still snug over his ears, notebook open in front of him. His tray was pushed to the side, half-eaten sandwich forgotten. His pencil moved slowly, dragging faint black lines across a blank page, notes, bars, lyrics. But this time, his eyes weren't completely focused. Every few seconds, he'd glance up at her Vanessa. She was impossible to miss, sitting 2 tables over with her friends, laughing, bright as sunlight, in a yellow dress that made her stand out even more. Her hair was done in soft waves, and when she smiled, it had the effortless kind of ease Marcus had never been able to fake. Vanessa wasn't mean exactly. She didn't go out of her way to make people feel small, but there was a distance to her like she lived in a slightly different world from the rest of them. Popular, pretty, untouchable. Marcus wasn't sure what possessed him that day. Maybe it was the way the music in his headphones reached a steady, building rhythm. Maybe it was just the posters everywhere, reminding him of all the things he'd always stood outside of. Whatever it was, he stood up. His legs felt wooden. His hands shook so slightly no one else would have noticed, but he felt it like a tremor beneath his skin. His heart was a solid weight in his chest, thudding so hard it felt like it might punch straight through his ribs. He slipped his headphones down around his neck. For once, the world wasn't muted. It was loud. Too loud, too loud. Step by step, he walked toward Vanessa's table. His notebook was still in his hand, gripped so tightly the edges bent under his fingers. She didn't see him at first. Her head was tilted toward her friend, mid-laugh. Marcus cleared his throat. Vanessa glanced up, blinking once. Her smile didn't drop right away, just froze slightly, like she wasn't sure whether she was supposed to be amused or confused. "Hey Marcus, right," she said, voice lilting. Marcus nodded. His throat was dry, but he forced the words out anyway. I was wondering if you'd maybe want to go to prom with me." The table went quiet. Even Vanessa's friends stopped talking, their eyes flickering between Marcus and her. It wasn't a cruel silence, it was worse. That brittle, awkward hush, where everyone seemed to be waiting for a punchline. Vanessa's gaze drifted downward, taking in Marcus's hoodie, his headphones still slung round his neck, the frayed edges of his notebook. She bit her lip just for a second. Then she let out a soft, almost apologetic laugh. "I don't think so, Marcus," she said gently, though there was something rehearsed about it. "You're not really my type." Her friends giggled, the kind of quiet giggle people do when they think they're not being obvious, but everyone hears it anyway. Marcus felt the words hit like a chord gone flat, but his face didn't fall the way some might have expected. His jaw tightened. His fingers flexed once around his notebook, then relaxed. He nodded once. Slow, calm. "All right," he said quietly. There wasn't anger in his voice, no sharp edge, just something steady beneath it, like the low pulse of bass in a song that hadn't quite dropped yet. Then he turned, walked away without rushing. Behind him, Vanessa's voice floated faintly through the cafeteria noise. "That was sweet though, right?" she said to her friends, almost like she was trying to soften it. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He slipped his headphones back over his ears as he crossed the room, letting the music flood in and fill up the space left behind by her answer. His heart was still racing, but not from nerves anymore. From something else. Determination. Out of the corner of his eye. As he left the lunchroom, Marcus caught sight of one of the prom posters taped to the wall. A night under the stars. Not this year, he thought. But someday. He walked a little taller as he headed down the hall, because, while everyone else saw a quiet kid with headphones, Marcus was already hearing something different. The beat of his own future, louder than any rejection could ever be. The sun had already begun its slow descent when Marcus stepped off the school bus, the sky bleeding from blue into soft streaks of amber and purple. His neighborhood was quieter than the parking lot at Jefferson High. Small houses lined up in neat rows, their yards patched with uneven grass, paint peeling off some of the porches. Marcus didn't mind the quiet. In fact, he craved it. When he reached his house, an aging 2-story, with creaky wooden steps, he pushed open the door without a word, slipping inside as if he were a ghost, returning to familiar walls. The smell of something warm and familiar drifted from the kitchen, rosemary and garlic butt. Marcus walked past it. His grandmother called from the other room, but he simply lifted a hand in greeting. Headphones already back over his ears. Upstairs, His room wasn't like most teenage boys. There were no posters of athletes, no clutter of sneakers or video games. Instead, there were posters of Grammy winners pinned to the walls, old black and white portraits of legendary producers, names most people at school wouldn't recognize, but Marcus studied them like saints. Quincy Jones, Pharrell, Jay Dilla. Every surface was covered. Beat machines with blinking lights, tangled cords, stacks of ancient keyboards and second-hand microphones. An old laptop sat open on his desk, its screen cracked at the corner but still working. The glow of music software cast a faint blue light across the room as the evening outside deepened into full night. Marcus pulled off his hoodie, kicked off his sneakers, and sat down in his chair like someone coming home not just to a room, but to himself. With a single press of a button, the headphones filled with sound, bass, snare, melody. He leaned into it, eyes half closed, fingers flying over the keyboard as he layered new beats onto old samples, twisting rhythms until they felt just right. His notebook sat nearby, open 2 fresh pages of scribbles and notes only he could fully decipher. Hours passed like this. The sky outside went from purple to black. Streetlights flickered on. Somewhere downstairs, his grandmother's footsteps padded softly as she moved around the house, but she didn't disturb him. She understood. It wasn't until close to midnight that she finally knocked on his door just once, gently. Then her voice, warm and steady. "Marcus, baby, you still up?" "Yeah, Grandma," he called back, pulling his headphones off. His voice was hoarse from not speaking for hours. The door creaked open, and there she was, thin and small, wrapped in a faded robe, silver hair tied back. Her face carried the softness and sharpness of someone who had survived a lot and learned patience through all of it. She didn't step fully into the room, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed lightly. "I know you got your music," she said, smiling in that way that wasn't just encouragement, it was faith. "But don't forget to sleep, too." Marcus gave a quiet chuckle, eyes lowering. For a moment, I noticed grandmother's eyes swept over the cluttered room, the lights blinking from machines most people wouldn't know how to turn on. Her gaze settled on the Grammy posters. "One day, baby," she said softly, voice filled with calm certainty, "they'll see what I already know." Marcus didn't answer right away. He just nodded, swallowing down the knot in his throat. She always said that, like it was as certain as the sun rising. And maybe, in her world, it was. After she left, Marcus sat there for a long moment, staring at the cracked laptop screen. He clicked a few keys. A folder opened labeled simply, "Midnight Tapes." Inside were dozens of tracks, beats, songs, some finished, some just rough sketches of ideas, but all of them had Marcus's fingerprints in them, his rhythm, his sole dot. With a practiced hand, he uploaded a new track. He never used his real name. His handle was simple, Quiet Theory, under the radar, anonymous, but people were starting to notice. His cursor hovered over a browser, tab on open page, showing his follower count. The numbers ticked upward, slowly but surely, from hundreds to thousands. Comments piled beneath his latest post. "Who is this? Insane production. Can't believe this isn't on the radio yet. Quiet Theory's gonna blow up. Just watch." And there was more. His inbox. Marcus clicked it open. Among the usual fan messages, there were others, no messages with company logos at the top. Emails from small record labels, independent producers, even 1 or 2 names he recognized, from interviews he'd watched late at night on YouTube, interested in a possible collaboration. "Let's talk distribution. Can you send us more samples of your work?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, headphones resting round his neck, eyes closed. The music was still playing, his own track, looping back on itself, but now, layered over the beat, there was something else, possibility that the outside world still saw him as the quiet music nerd, invisible in the school cafeteria, the kid who didn't get a date to prom. But in the world he was building track by track, beat by beat, Marcus was already becoming something else, something they hadn't seen yet, and he wasn't done, not even close. 3 years passed like pages turning in a book, each one filled with things most people at Jefferson High would never know. The seasons changed, spring to summer, then fall and winter. Faces came and went in the hallways, but one thing stayed the same: the cracked asphalt parking lot out front, still lined with faded white paint, still edged with tufts of stubborn grass. Except today, something was different. It wasn't just another school afternoon. There were cameras everywhere, bright white news vans idling at the curb, reporters clustering near the entrance, microphones and notepads in hand, eyes scanning the scene like something important was about to happen. Students stood in little groups, whispering and craning their necks. Phones were already out. Some pointed at the street, others at themselves, as they filmed hurried TikToks or Instagram stories. Something about a famous music guy visiting. Someone murmured near the front steps, "I heard he used to go here." Another voice said. None of them really knew. Not yet. Then, out on the street, a sleek black car appeared, the kind of car that didn't belong in this neighborhood. Polished, chrome rims, dark tinted windows that reflected the sun in sharp silver lines. The crowd seemed to hold its breath as the car rolled to a slow, deliberate stop at the curb. A moment passed, then the back door opened, and Marcus stepped out. But it wasn't the Marcus anyone here remembered. This Marcus stood taller, shoulders squared. His skin caught the sunlight the same way it always had, but now there was something else. Quiet weight in the way he moved, the kind of stillness that came from knowing exactly who you were. He wore a dark tailored suit, sharp at the edges, smooth as liquid. Black sunglasses shielded his eyes, but even without seeing them, people could feel the cool focus underneath. And in one hand, gripped casually like it wasn't even heavy, Marcus held a golden trophy, a Grammy. Its curved horn gleamed, catching light as cameras flashed all around him. For a long second, no one spoke. Then the murmurs started. "Wait, is that? No way, that's Marcus. Marcus from here, the music nerd." The words buzzed and swirled like static in the air, chasing each other through the crowd. Marcus didn't look around. He stepped forward slowly, his polished shoes clicking softly against the concrete. Behind him, another man, a publicist, maybe tried to clear a path, but Marcus didn't seem rushed. He wasn't here for a show. He wasn't here to prove anything. It felt like he was walking through time. The same parking lot, the same steps, but now every detail looked different. That's when Vanessa saw him. She'd only meant to visit the school for a quick stop. Her little sister was a freshman now, and Vanessa was home from college for spring break, planning to pick her up. She hadn't expected this. From across the parking lot, she froze, her breath caught mid-step. For a moment, she wasn't sure her eyes were telling her the truth. Marcus. She stepped closer, weaving through the edge of the crowd. Her heart hammered in her chest. It was him. Vanessa's mind flashed back. The cafeteria, the yellow dress, the soft laugh. "You're not really my type." She swallowed hard, suddenly hyper-aware of the difference between then and now. Back then, Marcus had been just a quiet boy with headphones and a notebook. Now, he looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. Every line of his suit fit perfectly, every step deliberate. And that Grammy in his hand, it wasn't a prop, it was real. Proof. Her voice caught before she even meant to say anything, but the words slipped out. "Marcus." It was quiet, almost too quiet to hear over the reporters and the camera shutters, but Marcus did hear. He turned his head slightly, tilting down his sunglasses just enough to look over them. His eyes met hers. For a long second, neither of them said a word. Vanessa's heart ached not just from surprise, but from something deeper. Regret, maybe, or realization. The kind that settles in your ribs like a slow-burning weight. Marcus's face didn't show bitterness. If anything, there was something gentler there. A faint, almost private smile pulling at one corner of his mouth. He nodded once. "Hey, Vanessa." Her name in his voice felt heavier now, older, like it belonged to a different time entirely. Vanessa opened her mouth, trying to find something to say, but all she managed was a soft, stunned whisper. I can't believe it's really you." Marcus's smile deepened just slightly. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Missed prom. I was a little busy." And with that, he turned again, heading up the school steps, surrounded by flashing cameras and the hum of microphones, the golden Grammy catching the afternoon light like a beacon. Behind him, Vanessa stood frozen, her hands clenched lightly at her sides. Her eyes followed him, wide and unblinking. All around her, students whispered, but for Vanessa, all the noise faded into silence, because now she wasn't looking at the quiet kid from before. She was looking at the man. He'd become Marcus, and the world was finally seeing what she had once overlooked. The sun had begun to dip lower now, casting long amber streaks across the pavement. The reporters still hovered near the front steps, calling Marcus's name, but he didn't seem in a rush. His pace was steady, his grip loose on the Grammy, and his hand from behind him. The voice came again, closer this time. Marcus. He paused, the syllables drawing him back like a quiet melody he hadn't heard in years. Is that really you? Marcus turned. Vanessa was standing just a few feet away now, separated from the press crowd, her expression caught somewhere between disbelief and apology. She looked different from high school, her hair shorter now, clothes more casual, but her voice still had that same gentle, deliberate tone. Only this time, there was something else layered underneath it. Hesitation. She stepped forward, her arms loosely crossed over her chest, as if bracing herself. Her voice shook slightly, like it didn't quite know what to do with the moment. I didn't think. Vanessa trailed off, her eyes flickering down to the Grammy in Marcus's hand. The golden curve caught the last light of the afternoon like fire. Marcus held her gaze calmly. No sharpness, no edges, a quiet kind of grace. Yeah, he said, voice smooth but soft. It's me. Vanessa swallowed, her fingers curling tighter against her arms. Marcus's smile didn't waver. He tilted his head slightly, as if considering how much to say. Then, I had to miss prom, he added, with a small shrug. I was a little busy, making music that landed gently, but it wasn't meant as a jab. It felt more like a fact, a simple line in a song that had already been written. Vanessa let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her eyes dropped again, this time staying on the Grammy for a long moment. The regret wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was there, clear as a single offbeat note. I never knew, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Back then, I didn't see it. Marcus's expression softened just a fraction more. Most people didn't, he said quietly. There wasn't bitterness in the words. If anything, there was something almost grateful in his tone, like the rejection had been part of what shaped him, like every quiet laugh, every overlooked moment had built the rhythm that brought him here. Vanessa bit her lip, looking back up at him now, her eyes searching his face for something she couldn't quite name. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The noise of cameras and voices seemed distant, like background static. Then, from just behind Marcus, a figure stepped forward, an older woman, her silver hair tied back in a neat scarf, her face lined with age and pride in equal measure. His grandmother. She stood just off to the side, her small hands clasped together in front of her, eyes shining as she watched Marcus. Without a word, Marcus turned slightly toward her. He reached out, handing her the Grammy, not as a trophy to show off, but as something deeper, a shared victory. His grandmother's hands trembled as she took it, fingers brushing over the engraved name. Her voice was low but steady when she spoke. Always told you, baby, she said softly, tears glinting in her eyes. One day they'd see what I already knew. Marcus leaned down, wrapping his arms around her in a slow, deliberate hug. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't for the cameras. It was quiet and real. The kind of hug that said more than words ever could. Vanessa watched from where she stood, her hands falling to her sides now. Her shoulders sagged slightly, not just from regret, but from understanding. She wasn't angry at herself exactly, but she felt the weight of her choices, how easy it had been to laugh once, to overlook and how wrong she'd been. When Marcus finally pulled back, he placed a steady hand on his grandmother's shoulder before turning toward Vanessa one last time. For a moment, their eyes met again, but Marcus didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The message was already there in his presence. In the Grammy, gleaming like a quiet answer to a question she hadn't even realized she'd asked. With a final nod, Marcus turned back toward the school entrance, his grandmother beside him. The cameras followed, flashes lighting the pavement like sparks trailing after a comet. Vanessa stood still, her arms crossed again, now not as a shield, but as something quieter. Acceptance. Not everything gets a second chance, but some lessons leave a lasting echo. And as she watched Marcus disappear through the doors, the sunlight folding around him, Vanessa knew that much for certain. The crowd had begun to thin now, as twilight settled fully over the school. Reporters packed up their gear, students drifted off in pairs or small groups, voices fading into the hum of early evening. But Marcus didn't rush. He stepped back through the front doors of Jefferson High slowly, each stride measured, his grandmother walking quietly beside him. His face remained calm, not cocky, not cold, just steady, like someone who'd been walking this path in his mind long before the moment had arrived. The same cracked parking lot stretched ahead of him, but it didn't feel small anymore. The air was cooler now, the sky painted in deep purples and burnt oranges, streaked with the last golden rays of sunlight. As Marcus walked, the light caught on the Grammy trophy still tucked under his arm. The gold horn glimmered with a quiet kind of authority, not loud, not flashy, just there. Real. Vanessa still stood near the edge of the lot, her figure silhouetted against the soft glow of the setting sun. She didn't call after him this time. She just watched, silent, her expression thoughtful, almost peaceful in a bittersweet way. The wind stirred slightly, rustling leaves along the curb, and in that quiet moment, it was as if the world itself had slowed down, letting the weight of the story settle. That's when the narrator's voice seemed to rise from the silence. Sometimes, the ones you overlook are the ones who rise the highest. The camera panned out slowly, showing Marcus's figure walking with quiet grace toward the sleek black car waiting by the curb, not rushed, not needing applause, just moving forward one step at a time. Never underestimate quiet talent, and never judge someone by the surface. The scene shifted gently, snapshots from earlier flashing briefly in the viewer's mind. Marcus, years ago, walking across the parking lot in that same hoodie, headphones on, notebook clutched tight. The cafeteria, Vanessa laughing without malice, not knowing what seed she'd just planted. His cluttered room, midnight beats layering into the dark like secret echoes. His grandmother's steady hand on his shoulder, her quiet words, "One day, baby, they'll see." The music swelled now, not too dramatic, but full of quiet power. A steady rhythm, the kind of beat that Marcus himself might have produced. Rich, patient, confident. As the camera focused in once more, Marcus reached his car. He opened the door slowly, slipping inside with practiced ease. The Grammy was placed gently in the passenger seat, as if it were just another part of his life, not a symbol, but a piece of the journey. Through the windshield, the last light of the sun reflected off the trophy's curve, a warm golden glow that seemed to pulse in time with the music. Marcus adjusted his sunglasses, one hand on the wheel, his other resting lightly on the edge of the seat, and then, with a quiet hum, the car pulled away, leaving behind Jefferson High, the parking lot, and everything that had once tried to define him. But it wasn't really about leaving. It was about carrying all of it forward. The quiet years, the overlooked days, the late nights no one else saw. Because in the end, Marcus hadn't needed anyone's permission to become who he was meant to be. The story didn't close with a grand speech or a dramatic reversal. It closed on something quieter and maybe stronger, a man who knew his own worth. The shot widened once more as the car faded into the distance, the horizon burning gold and purple, and for just a moment longer, the narrator's voice returned, softer now, like a final note held just a little longer before silence. Real power doesn't always shout, sometimes it just plays its own song. Fade to black.